of a colleague who was sacked from a government-funded institute for saying genetically modified food could damage immune systems. But the government still said developing the technique didn't need to stop. Our science editor, Lawrence McGinty, looks at the arguments on both sides.
The controversial research was on potatoes genetically engineered to produce high levels of a protein called lectin, which protects plants against pests. Dr. Arpad Rushtai, a leading expert on lectins, tested the genetically modified potatoes to see whether they were toxic to rats as well as to plant pests. He concluded they damaged the immune system.
The main concern is that some, perhaps 1 out of 1,000 of genetically modified food may interfere with our immunity.
For legal reasons, Dr. Pushtai can't now be interviewed, but today 20 scientists called a press conference to back his claims.
Nobody predicted what was going to happen when you fed cows meat. Similarly, nobody can be 100% certain that something won't go wrong if we introduce genetically modified food.
But the Rowett Institute, where Dr. Pushtai worked, disagreed, and after an internal inquiry, suspended him. Today, the Prime Minister entered the debate, trying to reassure consumers and mobilising senior ministers to play down the hazards.
It's simply not sensible to conclude that if a laboratory experiment with a known toxin added caused damage to rats, that all other genetically modified products are therefore unsafe.
But one of Britain's leading food safety experts says scientific testing is lagging behind the introduction of these new foods.
It's one of these issues where the science, in a sense, is not yet complete in terms of looking at all the various issues that have been raised. But these foods are with us.
Consumers are uneasy about genetically modified foods. Today's scientific row can only add to their suspicions. Lawrence McGinty, News at 10.
So how much food on our supermarket shelves has been genetically modified? And how can we tell if it is? Ros Charles has been finding out.
People are getting more aware of what they eat and more demanding about a choice of good quality, healthy food. Iceland decided early last year to make their own brand products free of genetically modified ingredients and to clearly label them as such. Their action was in response to wary food shoppers.
I do tend to sort of look at labels much more than I used to because I have 2 children as well.
I don't believe in this about being nature, right? You know, I mean, that's my opinion.
The supermarket chains have differing policies on using GM ingredients. Sainsbury's says customers should have the choice of buying clearly labelled GM products. 50 of its own brand products are genetically modified. Tesco has a policy of clear labelling, with 150 own brand products genetically modified. As well as labelling, the Asda chain says it's working to prevent new GM ingredients. They couldn't give the number of their own brand genetically modified products. Waitrose, meanwhile, is reducing the number of GM products, with only 4 of its own brand products now genetically modified. For people planning their weekly food shop tomorrow, the Consumers Association had this advice.
They should look very carefully at the labels. That's very hard to do because a lot of the manufacturers have not made it very easy for you and I to see what we're eating. But you need, if you're concerned about this, you need to talk to your supermarket and ask them what they're doing to ensure that you, the consumer, is going to have some choice.
This is probably just the start of another debate about food safety in Britain. But supermarkets hope that by offering clear choice and clear labelling, they'll reassure shoppers that the food from supermarket shelves is safe. Ros Childs, News at 10, West London.
One of the most extraordinary stories of deceit into using people who weren't who they said they were. Our media and arts correspondent Katie Derham reports.
Tomorrow's papers show this story isn't going away. More revelations that the guests on talk shows aren't always what they seem. Today, ITV's Trisha programme admitted it had been the victim of hoaxes. And tonight, the BBC announced 5 staff from the Vanessa show would have formal disciplinary interviews over yesterday's allegations that some had knowingly booked fake guests. Some TV regulars say they've seen the evidence firsthand.
Several times while I've been on chat shows, people have come up to me afterwards and in conversation they've admitted it, revealed it. I've also spoken to various people that have supplied guests to these shows and know the deal that was done.
It seems however hard shows strive for high standards, there's always a risk.
I wouldn't be able to guarantee to you, even with our very skilled and experienced production team, that if someone lied till they were blue in the face, pretending to be something they weren't, that we wouldn't have a hoaxer ourselves in the show. I don't believe it's happened so far.
Some blame for the scandal around this type of show is being laid on the researchers who book guests under enormous pressure to deliver extraordinary stories at short notice and who could potentially be taken in.
One of the chat shows that I worked on, you'd have maybe, if you were lucky, you'd have 3 days to get a programme together. You'd have to maybe find up to 30 people, all relevant. So we're not talking bums on seats. You're talking about somebody who has something relevant to say.
Now TV executives know they'll have to fight to win back credibility.
It's absolutely essential that if we are to maintain that relationship of trust between ourselves as broadcasters and the viewers, that we do everything in our power to stop the hoaxes, to stop the people who get a kick out of getting on TV at any cost.
This scandal surrounding talk shows follows hot on the heels of the exposure of faked scenes in a number of documentaries. So the pressure really is now on for TV bosses and, crucially, for TV regulators to reassure viewers that when a programme says it's true, it is. Katie Derham, News at 10.
3 men appeared in court today